Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Hello and welcome to Living on the Edge. This week we travel to Tamil Nadu to see whether the environmental damage caused by leather tanneries is worth the profits they make. How Kasauli's beautiful hillsides may be lost to high-rise constructions, and a creative way to reduce paper wastage and make money in the process. The president of the Ambur Consumer Protection Association in Tamil Nadu has sent us this letter. Our place Ambur is famous for tanneries. Here, water pollution has destroyed groundwater and residents have to purchase drinking water. We request you to do a story on your program, which we are watching regularly. Well, Priya Somaya visited Vaniyambadi close to Ambur to review the environmental damage caused by the tanneries and explore possible solutions.
This piece of land irrigated by water from the Palar river was once the source of Raghuswami's livelihood. The water is now a stagnant mass of industrial waste. And yet, Raghuswami continues to use the poisoned water to till his land. He knows it's futile, but then what else can he do?
When the water has salts, chemicals and acid, then my plants die.
The source, or rather the sources of pollution of the Palar, are not hard to find. There are over 200 leather tanneries in Vaniyambadi and several hundred more in the rest of Tamil Nadu's North Arcot district. The leather manufactured here generates crores in foreign exchange every day, as it's made largely for export. Despite a Supreme Court order that threatened the factories with closure if they didn't install treatment plants, effluents continue to pour into the Palar river at the rate of millions of litres every day. Living on the Edge visited several tanneries to see just how waste is generated and what becomes of it. This is where hides are treated with salt and dehair. Wool residue is sold at this stage to local carpet units, where the water containing organic substances and a large concentration of salt is discharged untreated. The next stage involves leather being put into rolling drums and being treated with acid. It's here that unprotected workers are exposed to chemicals and effluents in huge quantities. It was difficult to get them to talk as they feared their employers, but they couldn't deny the effect of the chemicals.
Our hands get affected by the chemical, so we have to put medicine. Why? Because the chemicals are very strong. Do you have any problems with chemicals?
I don't know anything. My foot will get burnt, so I'm wearing shoes.
Why?
Because of sodium and chemicals.
It's obvious that acids and chemicals that soften hides aren't going to have a beneficial impact on human skin, particularly if it's unprotected. Studies on tannery workers reveal a high incidence of skin diseases and lung ailments. It's here that hides are treated with chemicals to aid the tanning and coloring process. The chemicals room is a revelation of what you can expect to find in the water that pours out of the factories. Groundwater pollution is a logical consequence. Only a miracle could enable Raghuswami to till his land with this water. So, as of now, is there any pollution occurring in Vaniyambadi because of the tanneries?
No.
Answers such as these are contradicted by water sample tests that confirm the presence of toxic elements. Consumption of this water could cause kidney and heart disorders, high BP, cholera, jaundice, and even cancer. And yet, Pollution Control Board officials hedged out questions and spoke of future plans to set up common treatment plants. So, has any study been done on how it's actually affected the people or disease or the groundwater?
Actually, most of the industries, this tanning industry is concentrated in North Arcot district, North Arcot Ambedkar district, one of the districts in Tamil Nadu. So, of course, some studies have been conducted regarding by the agriculture department regarding the pollution caused due to the disposal of waste.
What
Some
did
studies
the study show?
just put it off. It's off the record again. There was groundwater pollution, and then about 10,000 hectares of land has been affected. But this is still sub judice, so I don't want to support. The board has been taking constant and persuasive action, and we have filed some, and we have been monitoring the industries. We have been persuading them to put up effluent treatment plant.
Where does the effluent from your tannery go?
It goes to the effluent treatment plant.
Can you show it to us?
उसमें गिर के वहाँ से वानी टेक जो आप देखे हैं ना उधर जाता है, वहाँ जाके कंप्लीट ट्रीट होके बाहर छोड़ते हैं।
तो अभी चल रहा है क्या ये ट्रीटमेंट?
हाँ चल रहा है।
वहाँ जाके देख सकते हैं?
देख सकते हैं।
What the owner said did seem to be true. The unceasing pressure of environmental groups has forced some tanneries to set up this common treatment plant. But how many tanneries actually send their waste here? How effective is the cleaning process? And why are large quantities of sludge containing dangerous chemicals dumped in open fields? Part of the problem is the inability of industrialists to see the potential value of the very substances they want to wash their hands of. The possibilities are endless. All it requires is a little imagination, the sharing of expenses, and someone to show the way. The Pollution Control Board, however, seems unequal to the task.
Even after what you got this knowledge about the pollution treatment, even today the government is not having any clear-cut picture about the treatment, and they don't have the technology.
यही सुप्रीम कोर्ट का कुछ 500 टैनरियों के
The
बारे में
Supreme Court order says that in 3 months, the pre-treatment plant should be working in all tanneries. If not, the tanneries will be shut down and will be fined. It can't be done in 3 months. At least 1 year should be given.
तो टैनरी बंद करना पड़ेगा और जो पोल्यूशन किया है उसके लिए फाइन देना पड़ेगा। वैसे भी 3 महीने के अंदर हो नहीं सकता, ये कम से कम 1 साल का वक्फा रहेगा तो कुछ हो सकता है।
As long as overriding profits viewed in isolation from humans and environmental costs remain the primary objective, the Supreme Court ruling will remain a dead letter. Groundwater pollution will become all-pervasive, and precious agricultural land in the area will be contaminated for good. The question is this a price worth paying?
From Vaniyambadi in the south to Kasauli, a popular hill station in Himachal. Here, multi-story buildings are sprouting on hillsides and scarring the beauty of this relatively untouched resort. These buildings also have serious consequences for the young and fragile Himalayan ecosystem, as Tisha Srivastava's report shows.
In hill stations like Kasauli in Himachal Pradesh, it is still a pleasure to amble along on a windy full moon night or to catch the sun rise and shine. The only alarm clock folks around here need is the sweet chirp of bird songs. All this, after all, is as much a part of the charm of hill stations as these quaint post boxes, old-timey British bungalows, and the salubrious climate. But slowly and surely, all across India, this pristineness has been defiled to make way for a city-like skyline in the shape of multi-storied construction.
Do you realize that the only hill stations that exist today in the whole of India are the ones created by the British? In 50 years of independence, or 47 years, whatever it is, we have not created one new hill station. We've destroyed them all, but not created one single one.
If you're looking for reasons why this has happened, it's largely because we have been unable to control building activity in our hill stations. Perhaps that's why Kasauli, a small cantonment town near Shimla, is fighting attempts to build multi-storied apartments and complexes within its limits.
Something which is concentrated or built spaces vertically going higher up, taking a lot of energy, electricity, parking space, water, concentration of all that. And then it has an environmental impact around that area. All kinds of petty vendors and shops start coming up. So over a period of time there is this very serious environmental issue.
Badog has got hotels. People go there. And a friend of mine had a business conference there. And they had decided to stay there 3 days. They had their meeting, they found there was no water, and they just had to disappear because they couldn't have a bath.
This brings us to a crucial problem related to the pressures of population. Being a cantonment town with an approximate area of about 25 square kilometers and a population of about 7,000, the original water allocation of 50,000 gallons still stands.
50,000 गैलन का कोटा पिछले 40 वर्ष से चल रहा है.
50,000 gallons is the quota allotted for the past 40 years. From time to time, the demand for increase in supply has been made to the central government and the local government. Kasauli is purely dependent on the central government for the past 3 years. This case has been lying with the Defence Ministry.
Defence states Delhi के पास pending पड़ा है.
The army doesn't collect its water, the schools here don't collect their water, the residents don't collect their water. They all want water which comes from the villages at the expense of their agriculture.
The water problem is so acute that whenever a forest fire ravages the area, there is no water to fight it. And if pressures of multi-storied buildings were to become a reality, the water supply would probably disappear altogether. But hoteliers and developers contend that these arguments are attempts at stalling development.
There should be something so that we can improve on our living standard. We can improve on our, business.
The builders want to build, and all the arguments are there. You see, we're giving employment, we're giving this, we're giving that. And what has happened to Badog? What has happened? Have they brought the water in?
Besides, on a hill slope, especially if it's dry, even without a structure, landslides are common. So if there's a heavy structure, it is going to bring down the hill even more quickly.
If the grade is very acute, then naturally the weight is going to affect it. As you would know, in Simla it's happening. Though in Simla, the ridge, which is part of which is sinking, basically because of the weight on it.
But what worried our team the most in Kasauli was the primitive sewage and garbage disposal systems. The station commander was unavailable for any kind of comment on the sad state of affairs. We contacted the other officials as well, but they couldn't be located. Of course, it must be said that the military is responsible for Kasauli's governance and supersedes all civilian authority. But residents argue that decisions often taken on the grounds of national security are actually taken for questionable reasons.
We had a lovely part of Kasauli where the Air Force have set up some sort of a communications base. Why do you need a helicopter station when you can land helicopters at the Kasauli military parade ground? They wanted to build helicopters for weekend jaunts for their senior officers. And but then we lobbied and we prevented them from building that station and by taking over the villages. So then they quietly went ahead and flattened the top of Monkey Point and built a mandir in a helicopter landing pad there, and not for strategic reasons.
This means that while the military disallows any construction activity, it permits itself the right to arbitrary construction. But as long as the military prevents high-rise construction in Kasauli, few residents will have cause to complain. Perhaps the answer to unplanned development lies in eco-detourism. This means that instead of allowing multi-storied construction in one specific area, cottage-like constructions across a larger spread within driving distance of each other should be encouraged. This will reduce the pressure on any one place and yet give tourists a host of destinations to choose from. Otherwise, Kasauli, like every other so-called hill station, will have to suffer more than its fair share of noisy, bustling plaza malls and deal with problems alien to its environs like overcrowded parking areas and irritatingly loud music that will drown every bird melody. And then, we would have succeeded in bringing to the hills all the problems we wanted to run away from in the first place, making it yet another people-drenched, a tourist-infested habitation, but at the cost of an ecosystem that will deteriorate beyond redemption.
It is very good business for the individual developer to say, people come here, always ask me, I'd like to have a house here. Naturally, if I say, all right, you know what I'll do? I'll build a multi-story building on this land. Will you take a flat? Yes, of course, immediately, at once. I'll get I don't know how many crores I can get out of here if I were to do that. And then they'd come and live here, or try and come and live here in filth and dirt and noise and pollution. Without water, without sewage, without garbage collection. And I will by that time have taken my crores and gone elsewhere.
Of late, we've received numerous letters with suggestions on how to save paper. Dibankar Paul of Goa writes, "We always throw away old calendars and used envelopes and don't realize how useful they are. The back of a calendar can be made into envelopes, so you don't need to buy them. Used envelopes can be used to make a shopping list or for our rough work and save precious trees." Dinesh Gupta of Simla writes, "After getting inspiration from your series, I've been able to buy a cordless phone by collecting and selling used papers for a year. I've also realized how many people benefit from recycling, the kabadiwala, transporter and recycle unit owners. That recycling is profitable and good for the environment is clear. But Shonar Joshi can show you how to set up your own unit and become an entrepreneur."
Though recycling is a word all of us are acquainted with, seldom are we able to adopt simple techniques that prevent wastage and activate the recycling process. Take paper for instance. It's so much a part of our lives and impossible to do without. And yet, it finds its way into the dustbin without a second thought. But there's a process that makes use of paper you throw away to make new paper by hand. The raw materials are non-woolly fibers like cotton rags, agrofibers and waste paper. We are going to show you how recycling is much easier than it sounds and why it makes good commercial sense and how it protects the environment. Our first stop is the Matri unit, which began as a training project but has now acquired international renown for the quality of its handmade paper. This is the first stage in the process. After non-cotton material is removed from the waste, it's cut into small pieces by a rag chopper machine. The pieces then go through a dusting process to remove impurities. This is to make the finished product as clean as possible. Clean rags are now converted into pulp in a beater machine which contains water and few chemicals. The process is slow to achieve best results. If you are wondering how this pile of pulp can ever become paper, the answer is simple. By spreading the pulp in vat machines, and enabling the water to drain through the wire mesh, you will get your first sheet of paper. To make the paper attractive and give it color, you can add flowers to the mixture. But this is useless unless this wet sheet is fused to a woolen felt, and this happens when it's put in a hydraulic press. The woolen felt can be used again while the sheets are left to dry. These are then sorted and cleaned using a wire brush. For the desired finish, the sheets are sandwiched between zinc sheets and passed through heavy rolls. At the final stage, they are cut into various sizes using guillotine machines. Using your own designs, you can create a whole range of objects, from lampshades, bags and boxes to folders, cards and pen stands. If this seems tedious, you can actually set up your own handmade paper unit and become an entrepreneur. Here are the cost benefits handmade paper enjoys. It's obvious that the handmade paper plant goes a long way towards reducing pollution and deforestation, and it is a better investment than a conventional project.
The present level of production of handmade paper in the country is 6,000 tons. Valued at 5.1 crores, it gives employment to 6,000 rural people and saves 5.4 million bamboo trees or 4.2 million eucalyptus trees from being cut.
If you are convinced of the advantages, you can write to Directorate of Handmade Paper Industry, Khadi and Industry Commission, 3 Irla Road, Villepale West, Bombay 400056 and start a plant of your own. Ultimately, we must remember that the depletion of non-renewable raw materials and the absence of planned afforestation means that conventional paper making is destructive of the entire ecosystem. It's only when we make a conscious effort to reuse and recycle paper and prevent its wastage that we will advance down the road to sustainable paper usage. "99% of all animal species that have ever lived are now extinct.